Hello and welcome to the White House 1600 Sessions. I'm Stuart McLaurin, President of the White House Historical Association. Today, I'm in Laurel, Maryland at the United States Secret Service James J. Rawley Training Center. We're here to get a very special look at the Beast, the affectionate name given by the press to the presidential limousine. This facility has served as the Secret Service Training Academy since 1971, and it sits on almost 500 acres of beautiful land with 6 miles of roadway and over 30 buildings. Well, I'm in one of those buildings now, the Deal Garage, and I'm standing next to a version of the Beast, and you'll see why it earned that nickname when it first debuted in 2001. General Motors engineered and custom-built these Cadillacs, which you definitely can't buy off the lot. Gen 2 debuted in 2009 during President Barack Obama's inauguration. We won't be able to look at Gen 3, the version used by President Biden and also by President Trump during his 2 terms, as Gen 3 is still on the road and in active service. But we'll get to know more about this one, which is used to help train agents. We'll also see other historic vehicles that have been used in service of the President of the United States. Our guest today is John Bush, the special agent in charge of the Presidential Protective Division for the United States Secret Service. John actually retired at the end of 2025 after 24 years of service. We'll talk with him about his career and hear firsthand an account of what it's like to drive and protect the President of the United States. Well, the United States Secret Service was formally established in 1865 to help battle counterfeiting of money. Their mission has evolved substantially over the years, and it was actually after the assassination of President William McKinley in 1901 that Congress requested that the Secret Service protect the United States President. It was President William Howard Taft who first used and received government funds to purchase vehicles for the White House, and thus began the work of the United States Secret Service and the limousine. The first president to use a modified car with safety protections was Franklin Delano Roosevelt when the United States entered into World War II following the attack on Pearl Harbor in December of 1941. Well, the armored vehicle has come a long, long way since then, and I'm really excited to learn more about the Presidential Protective Detail and then take a look around. So let's go meet our very special guest today, John Bush. So John, thank you so much for having us here today. It's an honor to be with you and your colleagues and to hear the important story of how the president is driven and protected and the history of that, and to see the reality of these incredible vehicles, which we take for granted seeing them on television, but they're so important to the integrity of the president's protection. And you've given so much of your career to that particular role. So I want to thank you for that and for your 24 years of service. And what does it mean to you, having just retired from the United States Secret Service and looking back on those years?
Well, thank you for having me. And it's a team effort. It's not just about one person and one effort, but to move the president in these vehicles takes a team of people. And that's what I miss the most, is interacting with that team and the people that sacrifice so much that it's seamless, as you said, seamless to the world that he moves, but it's really not seamless.
And how did you yourself join the Secret Service and begin this long career?
I was a police officer in the St. Louis area. I had worked a call one night to a bar for some counterfeit, and I didn't know what to do with the counterfeit. And my supervisor at the time said, call the Secret Service, that's what they do. And I did, and 30 minutes later, 2 men in suits showed up and walked me through it. And then a couple months later, George W. Bush was running for president. He was governor at the time, and I got to be involved in the motorcade security for his route in the St. Louis area.
And so over that period of time, you've worked with the service that has protected presidents of both parties, and there has to be a seamless coverage. There's no politics involved. Everything is nonpartisan, and you are working with presidents of all persuasions and stripes, just as we do in our job.
That's right. Completely apolitical, and it's more of the office than the person.
In terms of working in the various roles of the Secret Service, from the counterfeiting to the Presidential Protective Detail, how does someone get involved in the particular role that we're talking about today? How do you evolve into that from your service?
Well, once you're established into the agency and it's time for you to go to your protective assignment, you go to one of the two protective major details, which is the Vice President's detail or the Presidential detail. And during that time, they have what they call satellites, that you can be on the First Lady's detail or counter surveillance division or maybe the child's detail, or you can be in the transportation section. And so you're selected by your leadership to go out to the Raleigh Trade Center, and you go through protective operations driving course. And if you pass that, then you have the ability to be part of the transportation section.
And there's the living former presidents and first ladies. That great movie, Guarding Tess, they're guarding her. So you are deployed as well for formers in some capacity.
That's correct. Former details do have Secret Service protection.
You actually served as a driver to the president, and tell us about that particular responsibility.
I did. I was selected to go to transportation section with President Obama. But as you mentioned, there are many assignments. So today, I may be driving the limousine in Tulsa, Oklahoma, but next week we're going to Little Rock, and I'm driving the spare limo, or I'm driving the follow-up. Or I may be doing the advance, where I go out ahead of time and memorize routes and safe houses and coordinate with police, local medical, those things.
I can't imagine the coordination that it takes to begin. You get a trip on the books and you have to coordinate with all the various agencies in the transportation, and it would be the military that transports, right? And you're working with White House Advance and others to coordinate the routes and the travel. How do you learn all of that? How do you become integrated into that system that teaches you and trains you how to do this role in terms of all the various people you have to work with, in addition to protecting the president?
That's right. Well, during your progression with the transportation section, you will go through each progression as a follow-up driver or a spare driver. You have to graduate to drive the limo. And to do that, you have to be a good advance agent. And so you do make inroads and contacts with the military, because they do transport our cars for us. And then you go through the progression of your timeline while you're in the transportation section. And usually you end up your senior time driving a limousine.
And your actual time as a driver, as you mentioned, came with President Obama.
That's correct.
And how much time advance notice did you have that you were going to be the actual driver for the president?
So the trip comes out, the supervisor in the unit makes assignments, and next thing you know, I'm slated to drive in San Diego for President Obama. And so you take that trip and you're the driver.
And you've done all that training.
That's correct.
And you've got it, you know what you're doing. And then that moment comes when you're behind the wheel with the President of the United States. What is that moment? What is that feeling like?
Well, when we do the advance, we don't rely on maps. We don't rely on GPS. It's all based on the advance agents. This is the route we're taking. We go out, we look at the route, we drive the route. And then you just have to go back to your training. What the men taught us here at the Raleigh Training Center and our protective operations driving course about how to maneuver the vehicle.
But you're carrying the President of the United States. That's a pretty important payload.
That is. When you're driving, you don't think about it being the President of the United States. You have a job to do.
Yeah.
So you're going to do the job. But when you can finish the run and the route and you see what you've done and what the team has done, it sure does mean a lot.
So you're the driver, you're in the driver's seat. Who else is with you in the car other than the passengers? And what are the other roles that are primary in that motorcade?
So next to me in the right front seat would be the special agent in charge of the President's detail or the Vice President's detail. And I just retired as the special agent in charge of the President's detail. To be in the limo with us, you have to be invited in by the President himself or his senior staff. So we'll know that ahead of time. The car behind us is carrying another team of agents, and that's called the follow-up. There's a car that's somewhere in the motorcade that is very similar to this vehicle or the one that he's in, that has other security measures in it as well. And then it goes from there. A mix of staff and functional security vehicles.
And is the driver and the person that's riding shotgun, as we would say in civilian language, do they have interaction with the president? Can he reach up and tap on the glass, or is there glass between you and the president?
There is a partition. We keep it down. He does interact with the driver. I've been lucky enough to sit in both seats. So I've had conversations with President Obama about the city we're in or where we're going next, how long it takes to get there. And as the right front seat, talking with President Trump, it's the same thing. It could be about what the next event is or how the last event went. We don't talk baseball scores. It's pretty short and to the point, just because we're focusing on what could happen.
Sure. There's the motorcade and the vehicles that you have described there, but we also see local law enforcement, and then we'll see an ambulance in the motorcade and some communications vehicles. What's the length of an average motorcade? Is it 20 or 25 or 30 cars, or does it vary?
It varies. Typically on a domestic stop, it could be 20 to 30 vehicles. On a foreign stop, I've seen it be as much as 40 to 50 vehicles.
Wow. And how do you transport these vehicles to get them from one location to another? What kind of an aircraft can accommodate these vehicles?
So typically we use a C-17 transport plane, and we have used a C-5 to carry larger packages. And then we take that to whatever country or whatever state that he's going to. And as you referenced, we only have so many assets, so many cars. So there are times when on a campaign that team is out for several stops in a row because we have to get that vehicle and leapfrog it from one state, one city to another.
Well, you don't go into a Cadillac dealership and buy one of these.
That's correct.
A lot of forethought goes into it. And I imagine that General Motors and Cadillac is very proud of that relationship.
I would imagine that they are. It's not very often you see a Cadillac emblem on a vehicle like that. The older generations were just Cadillacs that they did buy, and they cut them, they stretched them, they armored them, they put ballistic capabilities on them, and they put them on the road. The new generation that we built from the ground up, and we have a hand in that design. Gen 4 is the next one, and it's currently being in production.
And then the former vehicles like we see here today are kept for museum purposes or for use by the service in an ongoing basis or ongoing way.
That's correct. These vehicles are out of service, and they're here for tours or to teach the lineage of the next driver.
Are there unique cars like that in other protective details for other heads of state, or are we really unique in that way?
We are very unique. In my time with the Secret Service and on the President's detail, I have seen only two other countries that bring their own cars, and that would be the President of Russia and the President of China. We both saw them recently in Alaska and then again in South Korea, and they brought their own vehicles the same way we do, military transport, because we don't want somebody else driving our vehicles, or we don't want to drive their vehicle. So we know what it's capable of, and we know who's driving it.
Now, we sometimes see an SUV type of car. What's the interplay between this Cadillac limousine and the SUV type of car that we see? Is it the President's choice? Is it the service's choice? Is it determined by the type of event that you're going to?
Yeah, it could be an array of things. Typically, we'd like to keep the President in the parade, the vehicle, because of its capabilities. The other vehicle that you mentioned is we call it the Camp David limousine. It's a Suburban on the armored platform based on the terrain of the road, based on the size of the road, the narrowness, based on the weather. It may be something that is more conducive to that vehicle.
Suppose the President wanted to go on a more spontaneous outing. I know that President George and Barbara Bush used to like to go to the Chinese restaurant out on Route 7. Suppose on a Saturday night, the President said, I wanted to go to dinner. How long does it take to get the car, to get ready to go on something that is a more spontaneous, off-the-record type of event?
It does happen. And we have an agreement with staff that it takes a certain amount of time, and I won't go into all the time or why it takes that much time, but we have to make sure that the routes are secure, that the local police are prepared, that we've had a chance to look at the location, which car fits. Maybe that's the point where we take the Suburban because we can't fit down the street with this vehicle. So there's a whole array of decisions that go in, but it does happen on a frequent basis.
And is that interface between the Secret Service and the President's Chief of Staff? What's the line of communications there? Yeah,
typically the Chief of Staff will call me as the special agent in charge of the detail, or I've had the President himself tell me that just seeing him at the White House, I'd like to do this today or tomorrow. And we come up with a time frame that we can do it.
One of the days that Americans are accustomed to seeing on television is Inauguration Day. And the custom is for the outgoing and the incoming president to be together riding up to Capitol Hill after they've met traditionally at the White House. That is an incredible moment of history when you're driving an outgoing and an incoming president of the United States in the same vehicle. What is that like?
Well, I was fortunate enough this year when President Trump was inaugurated as number 47, I was in the right front seat of the limo with him and President Biden. So I heard the conversations that they had. And you're thinking about, as you said, it's a historical moment, passing the torch, freedom on a scale that is international, but it's safe, it's democracy, we're safely passing that torch. It's inspiring at one moment, but then also that you know that there are adversaries out there who would love to disrupt that.
That's exactly right.
So the team of teams that we put in place, we're ready to deal with that.
Well, just as there is a very exclusive club of men who've been president of the United States, likewise, there's a small group who've actually driven these presidents. And to have that privilege and that responsibility, and on a day like the inauguration, it's twice as much. You're the protective detail for an outgoing and an incoming president of the United States. What else about that day is significant in the sort of the changing of the guard of the apparatus? Is the head of the president's protective detail replaced right away by the new head of a president's protective detail?
It really depends on who the president is and what time. I became the 39th Special Agent in charge of the detail last December 2024. And I was lucky enough to go down and do the transition for President Trump and then be involved in the transition of power with President Biden.
The Beast.
Yes.
Did you give it that name?
No, we did not give it that name. The media gave it that name.
Was it this generation that was given the name Beast, or was it one of the predecessor cars when it got that name?
No, the Beast moniker came from the media for George W. Bush's vehicle.
So for almost 20 years, it's had that Beast.
That's right.
That title. And did any preceding car have a nickname?
No, it's just the sheer size of that vehicle at the time. The media referred to it as the Beast.
It's amazing that something like that will stick and that people just refer to it as the Beast, and everybody in Washington knows exactly what they're talking about.
That's right.
That's great. Well, I know there's so many things that are classified or confidential about the vehicle itself, but just generally, what can you say about how much it weighs, and even could you say how the range of how fast it could go, or anything about descriptively about the car, so people understand how different it is from your normal Cadillac limousine?
Yeah, unfortunately, I can't discuss any of the weight or the length or its capabilities. But what I can tell you that's different is the people that are maintaining it, driving it, operating it. They put everything into it. And every day when it hits the road, it's ready to perform as designed.
Wow. And you take those people with you around the world as needed?
That's correct.
Yes. And it operates on gasoline?
The new generation is actually the first one to do diesel. The others were gasoline.
Wow, that's fascinating. And the flags that are on the front of the car, you have the American flag and then you have the presidential flag. Always those two flags? Is there ever a time when those flags would change or be anything different?
Well, those flags fly on the vehicle anytime the president's in the vehicle for an official movement. He always sits behind the American flag, so it's always on the right side. So there are times when we go to foreign countries that we will put that country flag on the left side so that we're right in unison with the Canadian flag or the South Korean flag while we're in their country.
And then do these flags get retired, or is there a special way that they ceremonially come and go? Because they obviously wear out a lot sooner than the car would wear out.
That's right. There are ways that they are given as gifts. I have a set that I was given for my retirement from my last movement.
Wow.
There are flags that are maybe on the vehicle for the day of the inauguration or a special event. We will gift those to the protectee or to somebody that was on that movement.
So the license plate here, did like somebody go down to the DMV and stand in line to get this DC license plate?
No, close. As you can imagine, there's always some type of intelligence that is driving what we do and don't do for the president. And it came to a point before the Beast that people would guess what vehicle he was in based on the license plate. So we wrote a letter to the DC DMV asking for the same plate be manufactured for all the same vehicles. So since then, every plate we've had has had that number, and it was just the next number up. There's nothing special about that number. And the only thing that has changed over time is sometimes it'll say representation without taxation, which is just the DC motto. So, but other than that, the number has always stayed the same.
And I don't see the inspection decals on there either, so you don't have to go do the exhaust.
We don't have to do that. We have our own mechanics that do a phenomenal job.
Just like when I asked you what it was like that first moment that you knew you were driving the President of the United States, there was the moment you knew would be your last drive with the President of the United States. So do you have a moment of interaction with the President about that? Does he know it's your last drive?
He did know it was my last drive, and he was very gracious. We didn't say much in the car about that, but once we got back to the White House, we had a personal moment where he congratulated me and shook my hand and told me he was proud of the work that we had done.
Wow, that's pretty incredible.
That's
quite an honor. Well, it's a very special calling to have the skills and ability to protect the President, but the respect and confidentiality and the discretion of being in the presence of things that are being discussed and that are taking place within your earshot. That's quite an honor to be in that bubble of information that's not just political, but it's globally important and globally sensitive. How do you handle, or anyone in your role, handle the burden of that responsibility?
Well, it comes down to what our motto is. We're worthy of trust and confidence. The President trusts me. The director trusts me and our people to put us in those situations. And it's my job to maintain that trust and that confidence. And if I can't, then I shouldn't be there. So there are things that I've heard in that car or in his proximity. I don't care who the president is. I've been around from President Obama to President Trump on his second term, hearing and seeing things that I will never repeat. And it could be innocuous, but I'll never repeat it.
Or it could be about their family, not
That's
just
right.
a national security matter, but it's things that could be very personal to them. And so you are a very trusted entity in their presence, which speaks so highly of you as an individual, but also the service as a whole.
That's right.
We're outside of Washington, D.C., and we're in this very special building where we're sitting here with these vehicles today. Tell me who this building is named after and what's important about him.
Well, it's named after a legend, Bob Deal. You could say he's the father of the armored vehicle that we have. He had a hand in driving back to President Nixon, driving President Reagan, had a hand in designing and having the first armored cars built. An incredible man.
I look at someone like Bob, I look at someone like you, and you as individuals are so much a part of the history of the White House, the history of the presidency, just as much as any other person that's on the president's senior staff or the cabinet, or maybe even the first family themselves. You've been an integral part, a role in the presidency. And that's a tremendous honor and a responsibility. And to just want to congratulate you again on your years of service and for sharing the story of this particular role with us. Just like when you see United States of America on the side of that plane, you see the seal on the side of this car when it wheels up and you guys are there and the doors open and the president steps out. That's a moment. That's a really powerful image. So thank you for all you've done to be a part of that story, this part of the presidency and part of the White House.
Thank you.
So now I'm really honored that you're going to take me around and show me some things and learn a little bit more about this incredible process, the vehicles, and what the president uses for ground transportation. So we're ready?
Well, it's ready. I have a special guest for you.
Okay.
Bob Deal's here.
Oh,
And
fantastic.
he's going to show us a few things.
Okay, let's go. Let's go see Bob. Well, I said we were going to have the opportunity to meet the great legendary Bob Deal. Here he is, the man and the legend of the United States Secret Service. And in fact, this building is named after Bob and his extraordinary career of 50 years in the United States Secret Service. In fact, I understand that almost everyone who is trained has gone through some element of working with Bob during those 50 years. Bob, tell us about this particular vehicle, where we are today, and its significance and its meaning.
Well, it is really the first big Cadillac, formal-looking parade car that we had built. It's a 1993. This car was cut, lengthened, the roof was raised, all the suspensions was changed. This thing is basically a Chevy C30 truck underneath of it,
Wow.
with a Chevy truck engine in it.
So this was Bill Clinton vintage right here. This was from the Clinton presidency, this
Yes.
car.
Yeah. We built several of these at the time because we needed cars. We were running short of cars in the Secret Service. We had two 1981 parade cars. Now, when I say parade cars, this is not built on a standard limo platform. This car probably 4,000 to 5,000 pounds more than a standard limo would be. We call it a parade car because we made it very formal looking.